You've probably at some point been paying attention this week to the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Again, Kyle Rittenhouse is the young man who showed up to the Black Lives Matter protests in the wake of the police killing of George Floyd in Kenosha, Wisconsin, over the summer. He came with I think it was I don't remember, was it an AR-15, I believe. I covered it extensively then, actually. I did a whole episode walking through all the video footage. I did a piece for my newsletter, misinfo.com, misinformation.misinfo.com, looking through all of the rumors and disinfo and misinformation that was flying around about the what happened when Kyle Rittenhouse basically opened fire and killed two protesters and injuring a third one. And this is a guy who long idolized law enforcement, as you've probably heard. And then he showed up. He went to Kenosha. He does not live in Kenosha. He doesn't even live in Wisconsin. He lives out of state. His mom drove him into the protest where he hooked up with a bunch of militia guys and Boogaloo boys who were there to protect property. And he ended up killing two people. I can go through the whole story over again, but what I really want to focus on today is not Kyle Rittenhouse. It is this judge, Judge Schroeder, Bruce Schroeder. And there's been a lot of criticism about this guy online. You've probably seen it. Early on in the beginnings of the trial, he said that prosecutors could not call the people Rittenhouse shot and killed victims, but that the defense could call them looters and arsonists. Again, it makes you don't know that they were looters and arsonists just because they were there at the event where there was some looting and arson that took place. Does not mean that those two individuals were taking part in that. Also, I would say that the idea that they aren't victims when Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed them is also odd, but that was one of the things people were talking about. Another thing was that there was he would not allow a video to be admitted that basically showed that Kyle Rittenhouse, would speak about shooting people prior to going up. I think it is actually based on where Rittenhouse is from, to Kenosha. Again, this is a young guy who wanted to be a cop really bad, so he went to the scene of what some people call a riot to basically play cop. And by play cop, I mean bring a real firearm and kill people. So he wasn't allowed to, the prosecution wasn't allowed to admit that tape. There was a number of things that people were questioning this judge about. But then this week, this judge really started to show his true colors. And we're going to start with the things that, we're going to go in order here. And as the week progressed and more people online were going, hey, this Judge Schroeder guy, something is off here. He clearly is siding or has some sort of, feeling for the side of the defense for Kyle Rittenhouse. He seems pretty biased. And as these critiques continued throughout the week, you had some people who were experienced in courtrooms, some lawyers saying, yeah, this guy is something's not right with this judge. And then you had some others, even some people with big influence online in the law world saying that, actually, this isn't out of the ordinary. What do you know? You're not usually in the courtroom. I'm a lawyer, and I can see what this judge is doing, and it's no way out of the ordinary from what we've seen in other trials with other judges. And, I digress. I'm not a lawyer. I don't find myself in court all too often. So, people who are in that position do have that experience. I would say, as you watch these clips, you'll see that I think maybe some of these things you can argue is not completely out of the ordinary, if not like totally couth to do. But B, I think you can also start to see that some of the stuff damn well does become weird. And then C, if the ordinary stuff is happening to the point where you don't think this is weird, where people who aren't part of that world are seeing this for the first time and saying this is weird, then maybe it shouldn't be like ordinary. Like the system is clearly fucked up and messed up. I mean, we know this, but perhaps it is even more corrupt than most people even realized. So let's watch some of these clips here. So let's start with Rittenhouse taking the stand, and the tears start to flow, and the judge, Bruce Schroeder, decides that this is where we need to take a break because the poor kid's gotta need to take a minute.
Describe what happens.
Once I take that step back, I look over my shoulder, and Mr. Rosenbaum was now running from my right side, and I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were.
Listen, I'm not someone to usually critique how someone is showing emotion. But I mean, listen, I have worked with actors before. I went to film school. I've worked on a number of shoots. I know when someone is trying to work up a cry for the camera. And you can clearly see that here. I mean, he wants the tears to flow, but they're just not flowing. I mean, his lawyers might have told him that you should, get in with the jury here by making them feel remorseful for you. You're just a kid, get emotional. I don't know. But clearly he decided that this was where he wanted to break down, and he's really trying hard here to make it happen. And he's blubbering, but the tears never quite flow, if you ask me.
There were 3 people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
That's what I run. We're gonna just take it.
That moment caught me. That moment I don't think many people have really paid attention to. Right there. And I brought this up in the Majority Report earlier today when I was on the show. There's an episode, and this is, I'm gonna bring up the Brady Bunch here. I'm from the Nick at Night generation. There's an episode of the Brady Bunch where Carol Brady gets into a fender bender with this guy, and he takes her to court over it. And he shows up in court that day with wearing a neck brace. And Carol Brady's clearly shocked because this guy did not show any sort of injuries at the scene of the accident, the fender bender. And this guy's really playing up that he's got this big injury. And just when it seems like the case might go in his favor, Carol Brady's husband, Mike, throws his briefcase on the floor. And the guy with the neck brace is startled by the briefcase and turns his head, clearly showing that the whole thing was fake. He was playing it up. He was acting because he was able to turn his neck. Carol Brady wins the case. I don't think the case is going to go in the way of the defense here. The case is going to go the way of the prosecution here and the way it went with Kyle Brady. I think things are looking good for Kyle Rittenhouse in the defense, obviously, because, that's how it always looked, to be quite honest, because that's how these things work. You can basically look for trouble in this. In the United States of America, you can go looking for trouble. And when you find trouble, all you have to do is say you feared for your safety due to that trouble, even though you were looking for it. So you had to then shoot, and you'll pretty much get off scot-free. It's amazing, isn't it? But that's what that moment reminded me of. He's finally getting the blubbering going, even though he never quite gets the tears rolling. Blubbering's going. The judge chimes in, which I don't know if he was expecting that, and he either turns because he was shocked to hear the judge say something, or he shuts off because he's got to hear what the judge says, right? Is the judge believing this shit? But clearly, if you're crying for real, you can't just, stop that shit like that. But watch.
That's right, run.
We're gonna just take it. Time for our break anyway.
Yeah, right there. See that? You saw that?
We're gonna just take it.
Yeah. All right. So the judge declares that we're going to take a break.
Time for our break anyway. You can just relax for a minute, sir.
Which is interesting because during Gage Rose, I forget his last name. I'm sorry. The third individual shot who survived, but Kyle Rittenhouse took like a chunk of his arm. The street medic who basically was the last to approach Kyle Rittenhouse after he shot and killed 2 people. He took the stand the day before, and he started to cry real tears when recounting the events. And I mean, you can see the tears roll down his face. And the judge never asked for a break. He never said, let's give this poor guy a minute. Okay. Let's say the judge wanted poor Kyle to take a moment so he can collect his thoughts. Fine. Okay. But then we go to this. And we get this is another moment. Now this is the main moment where people where some lawyers were saying this happens. Judges get upset at the defense or the prosecution all the time. Let's watch this clip.
So why
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
defense
get
testimony.
brazen with me.
This to be clear, this is the prosecution that Judge Schroeder is yelling at.
So why
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
defense testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one. Number two, this is propensity evidence. I said at the time that I made my ruling, and I'll repeat again now for you, I see no similarity between talking about wishing you had your AR gun, which you don't have, so that you could fire rounds at these thought to be shoplifters, and the incidents in these cases, which are not, there's nothing in your case that suggests the defendant was lying in wait to shoot at somebody.
I mean, the videos where he said that he wanted to do these sorts of things, which is what this whole argument's about. And then you got, obviously, the fact that he went down there and specifically put himself in a position to do that. I mean, there is a video that I played last year when in that episode where I went through all the video clips out there, where Rittenhouse tries to play medic and asks if anyone needs any medical attention, which, by the way, he never gave anyone medical attention down there. But he, under the guise of doing that, he goes around saying if anyone needs medical attention. And 2 protesters he comes across tells him on video to get the fuck out of here because they saw him moments ago pointing a gun at a few protesters or rioters, whatever you want to call them, who were on a car. Now, again, if you could disagree with people standing on a car or whatever it was they were doing, but that does not give Kyle Rittenhouse, who has no authority, the right to go over and point a gun at them. It's so the idea that this is not a guy who went looking for this to live out this sort of cop fantasy he had is bullshit. But that's what the judge ruled, and I wonder why. Well, let's keep watching.
Or reflecting upon the shooting for a vast amount of time. Every one of the incidents involves matters that involve seconds in time. So I commented at the time, I don't see the similarity, and I don't see the similarity now. If it's not similar, that's the whole rule.
Right. So again, if you are a lawyer who wants to argue that the judge was in the right here to, then fine. To me, this wasn't such a big one. This was one that took people by surprise because of how clearly he was. A lot of people have noticed this judge is quite chatty, really taking advantage of the limelight here, that all the mainstream media coverage that this court case is attracting. But to me, this was, not the worst of it. If you are a lawyer and say this is normal, I could believe that. But this is where we start to get a little bit into bizarro world, if you ask me. That same day, a phone goes off in the courtroom. Let's listen in.
The actions that I had talked about were done in bad faith.
Did you guys hear that? Let's listen one more time. And see, by the way, who has to shut his phone off.
The actions that I had talked about were done in bad faith.
Oh, look at that. Oh. So this judge, Schroeder, had to shut off his phone, which just happened to have the ringtone, Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA, a song that's quite popular with conservatives, regularly played at Trump rallies. Bit weird. I mean, again, not the biggest infraction, but I think it does add a little bit of background to where this judge might lie in terms of why he why he's made some of the decisions he's made in this courtroom so far. But again, I'll give the benefit of the doubt here. It's not the worst. Again, if this was all of it, I'd say, terrible coincidence that doesn't look too good on the judge. But then we go further, and today we get this judge making a oddly out of the blue racist joke here for really no reason.
What's that you expect?
So they're going to pause for lunch, and I don't know why he thinks this is appropriate, but here we go.
Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor. But let's.
Hope the Asian food isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor. Okay. Very weird. But okay, you might say, still, all right, this is not the end-all be-all here. But then we get to this here. From today.
I wanted to. This
judge decided to acknowledge that today is Veterans Day. And he asks the courtroom if there's any veterans in the court. Again, weird, bizarre, but let's see what happens, and maybe we could understand why this wasn't so appropriate.
I wanted to just observe that it's Veterans Day. And any veterans in the room, on the jury or anywhere else? Well, that's unusual not to have at least somebody in here. Well, Dr. Black is what branch?
Army, sir.
Dr. Black is the one person in the courtroom who is a veteran. You might be asking yourself, oh, okay, why is that so weird, Matt? Well, Dr. Black is the very next witness for the defense. The only person, the only veteran in that courtroom is one of Kyle Rittenhouse's witnesses. Let's continue though. What does the judge do upon finding out that, ooh, this is weird? this is awkward, I should say. The one person who's a veteran is the defense's next witness. Ooh, what should I do here so I don't look like I'm partial or leading or leaning in any sort of specific way? What do I do here?
Okay, and I think we give a round of applause to the people who've served us. Okay, so you may proceed.
Literally leading a round of applause for the defense's next witness, in which the jury took part in that applause. Now, Matt, how do you expect the judge here to know that Dr. Black, this defense witness, is a veteran? And, well, he didn't know that he was going to be the only veteran. Sure, of course. He didn't know that there would be no other veterans in the courtroom. Fine. But he knew that he was a veteran because witnesses are presented to the judge, and the judge knows there's a witness list. They know who the witnesses are, and they know their background. So without a doubt, this judge knew that the defense's witness was a veteran, decided to take the time right before the defense called this witness up there to ask if there were any veterans, and then to proceed to give a round of applause to the defense's witness, with the additional knowledge that he's the only guy in that room they're applauding. And listen, the critics of this judge aren't the only ones who realize that, man, this guy sure seems biased towards Kyle Rittenhouse. You don't even have to take our word for it, because please, these guys clearly have a vendetta against Kyle Rittenhouse in defense. So this judge is probably quite, not biased towards Rittenhouse at all. I don't believe that for a second. Again, don't take it from me and the critics. Judge Bruce Schroeder's critics. Take it from Kyle Rittenhouse's own mother.
The judge is very fair. People that I talked to that lives in Kenosha all their lives, they told me that Judge Schroeder is a very fair judge, and he doesn't allow no nonsense in his courtroom.
All right. Yeah, very, very fair judge, says the woman who drove Kyle Rittenhouse to the scene where he would go on to kill 2 people and maim a third. I mean, we know where this trial's headed. I mean, we knew from the beginning. We knew early on. If I was the prosecution, I would really be fighting for this to go before a different judge. Really, it's unbelievable. If it's going to go the way that, if it's going to go towards Rittenhouse, it should do it in a way where at least it's not so one-sided here, because this is getting quite ridiculous, honestly. So this is even more incredible than some of those clips of the judge yelling at the prosecutor or cheering for Veterans Day for the one veteran who just happens to be the defense's witness. This is just so bizarro world to me. So during the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, the prosecutors want to show a over the head street view video. And I think that's what that video is. There's a video they want to show. And to give the jury a better view, and again, this is obviously they have their iPad and they're projecting it onto a screen. They use the pinch to zoom function. You know what that is, right? You have your iPad here, you put your 2 fingers here, and you pinch, to zoom, and it zooms into the image. The defense makes an argument that the pinch to zoom function on the iPad manipulates the footage and should not be able to be used to show the jury. The defense says iPads, which are made by Apple, have artificial intelligence in them that allow things to be viewed through 3 dimensions and logarithms. They mean algorithms, but they said logarithms. It uses artificial intelligence or their logarithms to create what they believe is happening. So this isn't actually enhanced video. This is Apple's iPad programming creating what it thinks is there, not what necessarily is there. So the defense is literally arguing that when you pinch to zoom on your iPad, Apple is not, zooming in and enhancing like the digital artifacts, so they just smooth out the footage so you can see it better. No, what they are claiming is that Apple's logarithms and artificial intelligence visually create something that is not in the original image. I have never heard this before in my life. And I've read multiple outlets' coverage of this. Apple has not responded to comment yet, probably because this is so insane. But this is what the defense argued. And get ready for this. I know you guys have heard all these things about the judge and how he took a break when Kyle Rittenhouse was blubbering. And he had the Lee Greenwald Proud to be an American on his ringtone playing on his phone. And he wouldn't let the prosecution call Kyle Rittenhouse's victims, but he would allow them to be called looters and arsonists. And we got the Veterans Day thing that I previously mentioned. This might shock you, but the judge sided with the defense on this. And get ready for this is even more amazing. He argued that the prosecution had to show. The prosecution had the burden of proof, not the defense. The prosecution had the burden to prove that Apple does not use artificial intelligence to manipulate footage. Do you believe this? The judge said that the defense didn't have to prove something was happening. It was up to the prosecution to prove something was not happening, which you cannot do. You can't, but I guess he gave them 20 minutes to find an expert to speak to this. Now, this isn't information they previously had, so they didn't have an expert, on their list ready to go. And I guess, again, Apple wasn't responding to their emails in the 20-minute time frame. So the prosecution could not find an expert within that 20-minute timetable to prove that Apple is not using logarithms or artificial intelligence to manipulate footage by creating something that isn't there. So in the footage they showed the jury, the prosecution could not zoom in to show a better view of it. They had to show on the screen a zoomed out view. Unbelievable. Really, just unbelievable. What the fuck are we doing here? Seriously.